If you're searching scalp wingworm, Tinea, capitis, itchy, scaly scalp, scalp wingworm pictures, or hair loss patches on the scalp, you're probably trying to figure out what the world is going on with your scalp. You'll be surprised to know this. Don't leave yet, but you'll be surprised to know that scalp wingworm is one of the most highly searched terms on Google. And the main reason is because it always looks like dandruff first, until the hair starts breaking and falling out, and then you're like, okay, this is more than dandruff. So in this video, we're gonna go over the exact symptoms, treatment options, and when you need to go and see a doctor. And we'll also get into how to tell the difference between scalp wingworm or something like psoriasis, seborrheic dermatitis, dandruff, or girl wingworm. Quick note, this is not medical advice. Different scalp symptoms from different types of scalp and follicle infections. These symptoms can manifest differently, and sometimes they overlap. So it's really important that you go see a dermatologist.
Don't take it personal. That's just Sundow's way. She speak with love.
Now, most of us are familiar with wingworm from when we were children, but we think that it's something that we can't catch as an adult. But what if I told you that the majority of the habits, patterns, and routines that you follow actually give you wingworm when you think you have dandruff? Common symptoms are scaly, flaky scalp. This comes in patches and can mimic dandruff, but it's not dandruff. A really itchy scalp, sometimes really intense. Some people itch and scratch their scalp until it bleeds. Patchy hair loss, like different spots. Sometimes you'll even recognize black dots in the scalp. And the black dots is nothing crazy. It's just stubble like breakage, really short pieces. Your hair is breaking down like right before the root. Tender bumps, like pus filled bumps in the scalp, is a really big symptom, common symptom. And even swollen limbs in the back of the neck can be a sign in some really severe cases of wingworm. But if you have a really painful, swollen, and kind of boggy area, then you really need to pay attention. If you have pus and crusting sometimes join with the fever, this is something else. This is the name of this disorder, and we call it don't wait, because it's one of those things where if you are experiencing any of these symptoms, you will then cause the type of hair loss that is non-reversible. There are some forms of hair loss that you can't reverse. This is one of them. So what causes scalp wingworm and why does it spread? Dermatophyte is the name of the yeast that causes this infection.
So the hair shaft is loaded with fungus.
Indeed, a hair shaft loaded with fungus, and not just one, but 2, 3, all the hair shafts are just completely overwhelmed by fungus. They've got little Tinea spore forms on the outer surface. The inner surface, what used to be a hair shaft, is now like a fungal shaft, right? It's like completely replaced with vertical, parallel fungal hyphae, and you can see a little bit of brown melanin. That's from the hair shaft itself, I think, in this case, because the hair shaft has pigment, that's why hair has color, and the hair shaft has been completely consumed by fungus. It's like a zombie hair shaft. It's all overwhelmed and
Tinea capitis.
So what is this? This on the scalp. Yeah, Tinea capitis, and you can see this pattern, which has been called both. You can have endothrix, which is when the hair shaft is filled with fungus, and ectothrix, when the shaft is surrounded by fungus. In my experience, I often see kind of both together, like what looks like endothrix and ectothrix pattern together. Neither of those are actually a fungal type, right? They're just a pattern of fungal involvement of the hair shaft. And so usually you see this in the setting of Tinea capitis, but I've also seen it like on the forearm or other sites of the body where someone had dermatophytosis that involved their follicles, and when it did, it got colonized like this. And so these are caused by dermatophyte fungi. And what's the most common one that causes Tinea capitis? It varies by geographic location, is that right? Okay, so trichophyte and rubrum in the U.S. overall, but some areas maybe microsporum canis. Microsporum, right, for him? Okay, good. Just want to make sure I didn't get that wrong. Okay. And then here, this is an awesome case because here we can actually see it coming out of the surface. Isn't that amazing? I mean, if you don't like that, I just can't help you. I mean, that's fantastic. just to cut the C hair coming out of the surface of the skin where it's cut perfect like that is something we don't see that often. Like, it's got to be the perfect cut, right, to split the hair down the middle. But to see 3 hair shafts in a row, all loaded with fungus, swoon, it's too good to be true. Here's what it looks like more often, or if you get like a alopecia style punch, right, you're going to see more like this, right, where you get a cross section of the hair shaft that's got fungus. And if you get this and it ruptures, right, and you get inflammation and a little abscess around it, then you can say it's Miyake's granuloma, right? And in my experience, when I've seen things that clinically fit for Miyake's granuloma and I find fungus, I was always taught that the fungus should be in the dermis outside the follicle, in the middle of the abscess. I feel like I almost never see that. I feel like I'll see the abscess and the perifollicular inflammation that's giving that Miyake's, that kind of more indurated Miyake's granuloma appearance clinically, but the fungus usually I don't find in the dermis itself. So. But anyway, this is important to remember, and sometimes when you have endothrix, ectothrix, sometimes the fungus is only in the hair shafts or down in the follicles, but other times you'll find it on the surface too. So always make sure when you're doing a PAS that you do check around your follicles, and also if you're thinking of Miyake's or of Tinea capitis, make sure to check on the surface too for fungus with your GMS or PAS, whichever you like to use, whichever works better in your lab. Dermatophyte
is the fungi that causes this infection, wingworm, within the scalp, and there are 2 known active strands here on the screen. This is a species that can invade the hair shaft and the hair follicle. And this is why it behaves differently than your basic surface level rash. If it passes through close contact with friends, family members, kids passing each other at school, which is why it's so easy to go from child to child. Different shared items like combs, brushes, hats, scarves, coats, all of the things, pillows, helmets, girl. I'm telling you, you better be careful with your friends with little funky scalps. When you got friends that say they don't wash their hair and stuff and all of that, you better be careful, y'all. It's crazy. Think about the patterns and routines that y'all pass. Most of y'all got wingworm. And even pets. Some pets spread wingworm from animal to human, so you got to keep your dog clean too. So what works and what doesn't work? The truth is, most of the time you need a oral medicine, right? Sometimes topical treatments alone just don't work. Because the fungi can be inside of the hair shaft, sometimes topical creams and shampoos alone are not enough. Oral therapy is commonly required. These 3 medications have been shown to have an effect on this type of fungi within the hair shaft and along the hair's follicle. Make sure you check the blog post linked in the description box below to read up more on these 3 in detail. But what about antifungal shampoos? So most of the time the shampoos like the ones listed on the screen are referred to you maybe by a trichologist, a holistic hair care specialist, or of course your dermatologist. They will recommend this, but this is really to just balance the environment of the scalp, but it doesn't tackle the entire problem, because remember, with scalp wingworm, not only does this bacteria live in the scalp, but it lives within the hair shaft as well. Now, search terms like how to cure your wingworm and things of that nature at home. It's really popular, but because this is a scalp infection and a hair shaft infection at the same time, if you just treat, let's say, the infection on the scalp, but you never treat the infection on the hair shaft, your hair will continue to break. Why? This fungus lives inside of the hair shaft. That's why one common sign that you'll have it will be the hair breaking at the root. Why? It's inside of the hair shaft eating. So when you see a bunch of bald patches or thin patches starting to show up, or a lot of those shorter broken hairs around, girl, it's time to go see a dermatologist, because you have this bacteria living in your hair shaft. Pain, swelling, and pus. This is possibly accelerating to wingworm, and all of the symptoms that we talked about in children is extremely common, and it's spread very fast as a child. This is why most people think that wingworm is only a child's scalp and follicle disorder and hair shaft disorder. simply because it most of the time is most popular is showing up during childhood. But the majority of black women, or the majority of women who have scalp and follicle infections and your hair keeps breaking, you think that it's something like dandruff or seborrheic dermatitis, and no matter what you do, nothing's going away. Well, most likely it's because you have ringworm, sus. It's not dandruff or seborrheic dermatitis. And if you haven't been in to see a doctor, a holistic practitioner, or a trichologist, common symptoms in children, of course, is spreading really rapidly. This is why most people are under the impression that it is a child-only disease, because most of the people that are getting it are children. If it's not improving, and if your dandruff after certain treatments is not improving in 1 to 2 weeks, or if it's worsening quickly, this is something that you may want to pay attention to. I'm gonna tell you something. One of this bacteria, one of this fungi's favorite foods is oil. So if you think you have dandruff and you think you're gonna repair it with oils, your coconut oils, your all of your Pantu, all of that stuff, all you're doing is making it worse, because this fungi loves the lipids and all of the key constituents of these oils. And of course, if multiple family members or a lot of people that you know in your circle are getting it, look at it. So let's look at scalp ringworm versus dandruff. Normally it has flaking or patching starting in one spot that spreads over time, whereas dandruff most of the time is all over your whole head at one time. Dandruff often improves in 1 to 2 weeks with dandruff shampoo, as long as you're not feeding the yeast and bacteria with more oils and butters. And then the hair shaft normally isn't broken off. When it's dandruff isn't really affecting the hair shaft, only the scalp. So if you have the flaking patches and bald patches and some of the hair shaft breaking off, girl, you may have ringworm. Most likely you have dandruff or seborrheic dermatitis if the hair shaft isn't broken off, right? But it's just flaky and if it's just flaky all over the scalp and the hair isn't breaking off like that, it's just really inflamed at the scalp, most likely is dandruff or seborrheic dermatitis if it's not combined with breakage, right? Little black dots, we call it. Psoriasis is a little thicker. It's well-defined plaque patches, and this may often extend past the hairline. Again, this is another one that can be really itchy and flaky, but hair breakage isn't really a symptom of it unless you have really poor patterns and routines. But normally with psoriasis, we're not noticing breakage like that at the root or close to. But scalp ringworm is a little different. It's patchy scaling, right? So scaling in patches. Sometimes in one area you may not see any scaling and patching, and it may just be in one spot. And you'll also have broken hairs and hair loss in that spot. This is often the classic clue. It's the #1 sign and the first scalp infection that you learn when you're going into this. You go online and you try to research it, these are the things that pop up, and most of the time you misdiagnose yourself and you get the wrong thing and you just make it worse and worse and worse and worse, where in reality what's going on in your scalp is a fungi, it's an infection. In this video here I taught you about all of the different forms of yeast and bacteria that live in the scalp, and across my channel I'm always teaching you not to oil and grease the scalp. Even though you love it culturally, you are doing more harm than good. So a lot of black women that think that they have scalp infections, that think they have dandruff or seborrheic dermatitis, really you just have ringworm as an adult due to a lot of the different practices that you have. There's also a video that I saw online where women are like, I'm not gonna ever wash my combs and brushes, and you guys don't understand that by not properly washing your combs and brushes and sanitizing your utensils, what you do is pass on different forms of yeast, bacteria, and fungi like the one that causes ringworm. So as we constantly think about this, right? If you are a person who has ringworm and you don't know it, and you think that you're treating something by scratching, you know, the scales off your scalp and then adding oil to it and then putting a product on top of it, there are so many clients that I had that did that, and then once they no longer did that thing and they maybe shampooed their hair one day, they're like, oh my god, all my hair broke off, all of my hair fell out, I used this one product and then all of my hair fell out. When the reality of the situation is, on a microscopic level, all that happened is you took off that coating on top of the hair shaft that was masking in that fungi for a second, and then it got more active, right? Once you actually shampooed your hair, it got even more active, and then it was able to break. They start going wild when that oxygen hit it, and then it begins to break down and the hair begins to fall out. Does this mean that the hair is healthier with the oils and the butters? No, it doesn't. It means that there is a sealant on top of the hair shaft. And I remember years and years ago, I told you guys about RiceWater, and at the time I was in a little bit of a different energy, but that was one of the things that I was telling you were feeding. Look at this clip here. Today we're going to talk about two bacteria, Pseudomonas and Bacillus. If you've ever made rice water, then this is what you were creating. Remember when I made it? So the fermentation process of RiceWater looks like this, what I'm displaying here on the screen. And when you are fermenting rice, yes, during certain fermentation processes followed in a certain way, not like the way that y'all been doing it in the kitchen, right? Sometimes it can develop really beneficial nutrients, but what you guys fail to realize is, on top of it developing beneficial nutrients, it can also develop different forms of bacteria, and we're going to talk about two of them today. Look at the little critters, look at them. Now, about this bacteria, Pseudomonas. Pseudomonas is a bacteria that's real special, right? And remember, this is the bacteria that is inside of the RiceWater. As I'm talking, look at the screen. Look at this little critter with the arms and the legs. With the arms and the legs, this is the one with the arms and the legs. Now, this bacteria is commonly found in RiceWater, as you can see, and it thrives in this nutrient dense atmosphere. And not to mention, the more RiceWater present, the more this bacteria is able to reproduce itself. So this is a bacteria that can get really widespread really fast. And in that clip, I was also, not only did I tell you guys that you were slowly killing yourselves by putting things like RiceWater in your hair. It wasn't just the RiceWater, because around this time we were doing co-washing where we weren't properly washing our hair. Also had videos like the one that I'm gonna play now, where people were telling you not to shampoo your hair, period, and to only shampoo the scalp and let the water run down the rest. Look. So after watching these videos and understanding what a scalp and hair shaft infection, fungi infection looks like, can you see how only using a co-washing conditioner, which is not strong enough to kill this fungi, and only shampooing the roots and not properly shampooing the ends, removing different forms of yeast, bacteria, and fungi from the hair shaft, these are the things that can happen. So when I make different videos here on my channel and I'm like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, it's all for a reason, right? Because there is a microscopic world. There's the world that you live in, and then there's the world that the different forms of yeast and bacteria and fungi that can invade our hair follicle and our hair shaft, causing all of these different forms of disorders that we think. Again, make sure you check the link in the description box below so you can learn a little bit more about what you can take and what herbs you can take from an internal level to begin to reverse these things. One of my favorite herbs to take to balance your body and your gut's microbiome is oregano. Oregano is amazing with its antimicrobial and antibacterial properties. It is a powerhouse when it comes to controlling an imbalance within your gut's microbiome and your body altogether. This is something that you could also use on the scalp temporarily, very quickly, and you would simply use an extract with a little bit of water, right, a certain amount. Check my blog post for the exact measurements, and then you would take a spray bottle, spray it over the hair shaft, and then cover it. Is boiling oregano, the actual leaf, the same and as powerful as an extract? Absolutely not. So you will not get the same benefits if you want to do the shortcut of just boiling oregano. No, it will not do the job. It may actually make it worse. But if we use the pure extract, it gets the job done. Another thing that is amazing with this is also adding tea tree. Tea tree and its antimicrobial properties and all the rest of them that I will leave here on the screen are freaking amazing at balancing this out from an external level. Remember, this lives on the inside of the hair shaft and in the hair follicle, and it can also be a gut and an internal issue. So you want to tackle it internally and externally at the same time. If you need more information about exactly what to do, exact measurements, more information on the studies, then make sure you check the link in the description box below to read over the full blog post so you're ready for part 2. I'm really excited for you to unlock these secrets. This is a brand new series that we're starting on the channel of scalp and follicle infections. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you check out my course on hair shaft and follicle infections. This is actually part 2 to this video because we already have a part 1, so you're actually waiting for part 3. So go watch part 1. You already saw part 2, and then we'll do part 3.